My husband waited until our children were standing beside us. 62 guests had turned toward the flower arch, and the photographer had raised her camera before he announced that our marriage was now open. Then Grant took another woman by the hand and said, "Serena is part of the life Laura and I are choosing next." I had never chosen Serena. I had never agreed to an open marriage. 11 days earlier, Grant had admitted he was sleeping with her and told me the affair could become ethical if I stopped resisting it before our 20th anniversary vow renewal. The night before the ceremony, he said, "Smile, repeat the vows, and welcome her after my toast. If you contradict me in front of everyone, Emma and Caleb will remember you as the person who destroyed this family." He believed the venue, the money already spent, our parents in the front row, and our children's embarrassment would do what his arguments had failed to do. He believed a crowd could turn my silence into consent. When Serena stepped forward, I picked up the microphone and said, "One fact needs to be corrected before anyone photographs this. I did not agree to an open marriage. Grant was having an affair, and he asked me to rename it so this ceremony could continue. There will be no vow renewal tonight." The officiant closed her binder. Grant's hand fell away from Serena's. Nobody applauded. My daughter stared at her father as if she no longer recognized his face. Serena whispered, "You told me she knew." That was the moment Grant's new chapter became what it had always been. A public demand built on 3 private lies. My name is Laura Bennett. I was 44 that evening and worked as an operations director for a public school district outside Raleigh, North Carolina. Grant was 46, a physical therapist and minority partner in a rehabilitation clinic. We had been married 20 years. Emma was 17 and applying to colleges. Caleb was 14 and believed most problems improved with hot sauce. Our marriage had accumulated the ordinary wear of 2 careers, 2 children, aging parents, and schedules that rarely agreed. We argued about Grant accepting weekend clinic events, me answering district messages during dinner, and whether the upstairs bathroom needed renovation or merely a new fan. We did not threaten divorce. We had stopped being curious about each other as often as we should have, but I did not think curiosity had been replaced by deception. The vow renewal was Grant's idea. He proposed it after my father's second heart procedure, when we were sitting in a hospital cafeteria with bad coffee between us. 20 years should feel like something more than a date on the calendar, he said. Our first wedding had been small because we were 24 and broke. For the 20th anniversary, we booked Briar House, a lakeside in outside Raleigh. Emma would read a poem, Caleb would carry the rings, and my father would walk me to the garden if his health allowed. For a while, planning made Grant and me feel close again. Then Serena Walsh began appearing in the margins. Grant said she was a marketing consultant hired by the clinic to redesign its referral program. She was 38, divorced, and polished. At the clinic's spring open house, she shook my hand and said, "Grant talks about you constantly." She knew about Emma's college applications, my father's health, and a crisis I had handled at work. I mistook that knowledge for proof that Grant was proud of me. Later, I realized he had given Serena enough detail to make his version of our marriage sound credible. I was practical, loyal, emotionally distant, and privately ready to change the rules. Serena offered to design our slideshow and programs. She suggested still choosing US for the cover, and I approved those 3 words. The first thing that felt wrong was the seating chart. Serena appeared at table 1 beside our parents, siblings, and children. I moved her to the clinic table. 2 weeks later, she was back at table 1, now described as participating in the family portion. When I asked Grant why, he said she had offered to help with my father's medication. "My father has a nurse and a medication case," I said. "He does not need your marketing consultant." Grant became irritated too quickly. "Why are you determined to make her feel like an outsider?" "Because she is not family." He looked at me and said, "Maybe family can be broader than you think." After that, he sent me podcasts about conscious partnership and moving beyond ownership. The material said consensual non-monogamy required enthusiastic agreement and could not be used to legitimize an existing affair. I texted Grant, "Consent seems like the entire point." He replied with a heart. That evening he asked whether one person could meet every need for another over a lifetime. I said no, which was why people had friends, family, work, and private lives. "You know that is not what I mean," he said. "Then ask the question you mean." He asked whether love had to be controlled by fear. I asked whether he wanted to sleep with other people. He called the question hostile. I told him I would discuss our marriage with a licensed therapist, but I would not debate rules he had already chosen. Then I saw a photograph on Serena's Instagram. She was on a hotel balcony in Asheville wearing a navy robe. The caption said, "Some weekends teach you how much space a life can hold." Grant had attended a conference in Asheville that weekend. He said Serena went with the clinic team. Julian, his business partner, was supposedly there too. Julian's wife was a friend of mine. When I mentioned the conference, she said Julian had canceled because their daughter had the flu. The other therapists had attended virtually. When I asked Grant again, he said he had misunderstood my question and accused me of interrogating normal work travel because an Instagram caption made me insecure. The next morning, he left an article about jealousy on the kitchen counter. I threw it away, then retrieved it because I wanted to remember how efficiently he had turned his lie into my diagnosis. I booked a marriage counselor. Grant attended twice. In the first session he said he felt unseen. In the second he said our marriage had become structurally closed. When the therapist asked whether he was currently involved with someone else, he answered, "Not in the way Laura means." She stopped him. "That answer is not clear enough for this room." Grant said he had developed feelings but had not violated any boundary he considered fair. I said, "The boundary is not yours to redefine alone." He walked out before the session ended. In the parking lot, I asked directly whether he had slept with Serena. "I have not betrayed what our marriage could become," he said. The admission finally came 11 days before the vow renewal. Grant sat across from me after the children were asleep and said he and Serena had been physically involved since January. He said they loved each other. He said he still loved me. Then he said the affair partly existed because I had refused every chance to discuss a more expansive marriage. "You started sleeping with her before you sent the first podcast," I said. "I knew you would reject the idea if I did not help you understand it. That is not consent. That is a campaign. This is exactly why I was afraid to tell you. You were afraid I would say no. I was afraid you would react from fear. I am saying no now." He leaned back. "The renewal is in 11 days. Both families are coming. Your father arranged medical transport. Emma wrote her reading. Caleb has practiced carrying those rings like they are nuclear codes. Are you prepared to take this away from everyone because you cannot imagine a different marriage?" He moved from confession to logistics in less than 10 minutes. I asked whether Serena was attending. He said she would be acknowledged after the vows as someone important to us. "There is no us that includes her." "There can be. Not with me." Grant suggested we repeat revised vows. Let the weekend happen, and negotiate privately afterward. He did not need me to agree forever. He needed me to perform agreement for one evening, before enough witnesses that correcting it later would make me look unstable. The next morning, I called Nina, our coordinator at Briar House. I said I no longer consented to a vow renewal ceremony and asked what could proceed without it. Dinner, rooms, music, and photography could remain. The officiant was independent. The floral arch could become decoration. Nina confirmed in writing that neither spouse would be presented for vows without separate agreement on the day. Reverend June Ellis, who had known my family for years, said, "A vow obtained through pressure is not a vow I will witness." For the first time since Grant's confession, I breathed fully. Grant discovered the change when Nina sent a revised schedule titled Anniversary Dinner. "You made a private disagreement visible," he said. "You invited Serena into the family portion of the event. Because hiding her is dishonest. You have hidden her for 11 months. He said Serena had bought a dress. His sister Rachel had prepared a toast, and the programs had been printed. That was how I learned Rachel knew. When I called her, she said Grant told her we had discussed an open marriage for months and the renewal would mark our decision to stop hiding. "Did he tell you he was already sleeping with Serena?" I asked. Rachel went silent. I told her not to give the toast and not to speak to the children. The night before the anniversary, I found one program inside Grant's garment bag. The cover still said "Still Choosing U.S." Inside was a paragraph I had never approved. Laura and Grant renew their commitment to release ownership and welcome the relationships that help their family grow. Serena's name appeared between our children and our parents. Grant had planned to put my consent in writing, hand it to every guest, photograph it, and call any later objection a reversal. I sent Nina a picture and asked her to keep the programs boxed. During the drive to Briar House, Emma asked why the schedule now said anniversary dinner. Grant answered first. Your mother is overwhelmed. So we are simplifying. I turned toward the back seat. That is not the full explanation. We will speak privately after the weekend. By sunset, the terrace glowed with string lights. My father arrived wearing the tie from our first wedding. Guests hugged us and said 20 years was inspiring. Every compliment felt like a debt I had not agreed to collect. Serena stood near the bar in a green dress. Grant had put her at table 1 despite the lock chart. Reverend June met my eyes and nodded. For 10 minutes, I thought Grant might accept that the ceremony was over. Then he walked to the microphone, thanked everyone for traveling, called our family brave, and asked Emma and Caleb to stand beside us. They obeyed because he was their father and because 62 people were watching. He said we were moving beyond old definitions. Then he reached for Serena. The event itself was his final argument. I took the microphone, corrected the lie, and ended the vow renewal before it began. For several seconds after I said there would be no vow renewal, Grant kept smiling at the guests as though he could outlast the meaning of my words. Then he reached for the microphone. I held it at my side. Laura is upset, he said. We have been working through this privately, and this is not how we intended to explain it. There is no we in that statement, I replied. Grant looked toward Reverend June. Can we take 5 minutes? June closed her binder. There will be no vows unless both people ask me freely. Laura has not. The room went quiet. Grant could call me afraid or angry, but he could no longer call the ceremony mutual. Serena stepped away from him. You said she approved the program, she said. Grant glanced at me. She approved the concept. She is reacting to the timing. I opened the folder I had carried to the terrace and held up the printed program. I approved the cover. I did not approve the paragraph saying I would welcome another relationship into our marriage. I saw that paragraph last night. Grant's mother whispered his name. Grant said, "This is cruel." No, this is accurate. I handed the microphone to Nina because I would not turn the rest into a debate staged for guests. The ceremony is canceled, I told the room. Dinner has been paid for and will be served. Nobody is required to stay, take sides, or discuss our marriage tonight. I am sorry you were invited into a moment you did not consent to either. Then I turned to Emma and Caleb. Emma's face was white. Caleb stared at the ring box in his hands. Come inside with me, I said. Grant moved toward us. Emma stepped back. Did you cheat on Mom? She asked. Grant hesitated. The terrace was not the room I would have chosen, but he had chosen it for us. Yes, he said, but it is more complicated than that. Emma shook her head. You just told everyone she agreed. I thought she was going to. That is not what agreed means. She walked toward the inn. Caleb placed the ring box on an empty chair and followed. Behind us, voices began in small, uncertain pockets. There was no universal reaction. My mother stayed with my father. Grant's mother cried. 2 clinic employees left. One cousin started recording until Nina stood in front of his phone and reminded him it was a private event. I had corrected a public lie. I did not want our children's faces turned into evidence for strangers. Inside the inn, Emma locked herself in the women's restroom. Caleb sat on the floor outside with his back against the wall. I sat beside him in the dress I had bought to repeat promises. Did you know before today? He asked. I learned 11 days ago. Why did we come? The question stopped me. Because the ceremony was already canceled, the family had traveled, Grandpa needed medical arrangements, and I believed your father would respect the change. I was wrong. Did you know he would announce it? No. Did you bring that answer anyway? No. I brought documents so nobody could say I had agreed. He nodded. That sounds like you. He knew I had prepared for someone to deny the truth. When Emma came out, her mascara was smudged and her anger had become still. She wanted to go home. Caleb wanted to stay with my parents at the inn. My friend Dana offered to drive Emma and remain with her. Before they left, Grant appeared at the end of the hall. Emma, let me explain. Did you write that program? She asked. Serena designed it. That is not what I asked. I approved it. Emma looked at me. I am going with Dana. Grant stepped forward. I stood near enough that Emma did not have to negotiate his panic. Let her leave, I said. You are turning her against me. She asked one question. You answered it. After they left, Grant told me I had humiliated Serena. Not the children. Not our parents. Serena, you told her I consented. I said. I believed you would understand once the fear of the announcement was gone. You believed the announcement would remove my ability to say no. I believed you would not destroy 20 years over one relationship. You were willing to destroy my right to describe those 20 years. Serena appeared behind him holding her purse. I need to speak to Laura. Grant said. Not now. Especially now. She looked at me. Did you send me an email in August saying you wanted me included tonight? No. Grant said her name like a warning. Serena opened her phone. The message came from an address built from my first and maiden names, close enough to look personal. It said I knew what she and Grant shared was real, agreed the anniversary should acknowledge our changing family, and needed patience until October. It ended with my name. I had never seen the address. Forward it to me, I said. Grant reached for her phone. Serena pulled it back. You told me she created this account because she was afraid the kids would read her regular email. I told you she was processing. You wrote to me as your wife. She forwarded the email and screenshots in which Grant claimed I wanted the public acknowledgement because I would retreat if we left room for fear. Another message said that once the children saw all three adults standing together, the transition would feel safe. I felt sick reading him use our children as imagined witnesses to consent he had fabricated. Serena said, He told me your counselor supported a public acknowledgement. Our counselor asked whether he was involved with someone. He walked out. Serena closed her eyes. How long have you known about me? 11 days. He told me 11 months. Grant said, I told you she knew we had feelings. You told me she knew we were together. Guests were watching through the glass. I asked Nina for a private room. Grant refused to enter unless I promised not to record him. I was not recording. Serena placed her phone on the desk and asked Nina to remain as a witness. The conversation lasted 9 minutes. Grant admitted creating the email address but claimed the messages expressed what I would have said without social conditioning. He admitted telling Serena I had agreed in principle. He said the program was designed to make the change feel celebratory instead of shameful. When Serena asked whether he ever planned to pause their relationship if I refused, he answered, I was not going to let fear make decisions for all of us. Serena removed the bracelet he had given her and set it on the desk. You did not open a marriage, she said. You lied to both of us and called it consent. Grant looked at me as if I had scripted her. Is this what you wanted? No. I wanted you to tell the truth before we planned an anniversary around a lie. Grant left through the dining room. His mother followed. Serena left through the kitchen entrance to avoid the guests. Later, she would tell me she sat in her car for nearly an hour because every version of the evening she had believed was gone. The terrace remained full of people who did not know whether dinner was still happening. The floral arch stood empty against the lake. The cake said 20 years, still choosing US in gold icing. I considered leaving, but my father could not travel again that night. Caleb had asked to remain with his grandparents, and none of them had caused the lie. Serve dinner, I told Nina. No speeches, no open microphone, no anniversary dance. Anyone who wants to leave may leave. What about the cake? It was such an ordinary question that I nearly cried. Cut it. It is already cake. About a third of the guests left before dinner. I changed into a navy suit because the anniversary dress felt like part of the performance. My father told the story of forgetting our rings at our first wedding, and the room managed one genuine laugh. Caleb ate 2 rolls and ignored the entree. Nobody gave a speech or tried to rescue the evening with a lesson. That restraint was the kindest thing the adults in the room offered my children. After dessert, he asked if we were getting divorced. I do not know yet, I said. Do you still love Dad? Yes. Loving someone does not make every choice safe to accept. Is Serena bad? I do not know her well enough to answer, and you do not need to decide. Dad said some families have more than 2 adults. Some do with honesty and agreement. That is not what happened here. He leaned against me, not crying, just exhausted. At midnight, I drove home alone. Emma was awake on the couch with Dana. The first thing she asked was whether Grant had returned. He had not. I called him at Rachel's house. I said the children were home and safe and had asked for space. "You cannot keep me out of my own house," he said. "Legally, you are right. If you insist on returning, I will not block you. I will document that you chose access over their request." He stayed with Rachel. The next morning, I contacted a family law attorney named Marisol Green. She told me not to change locks, empty accounts, threaten Grant's clinic, publish screenshots, or treat one terrible event as permission to ignore ordinary law. "Most people do not call it revenge while they are frightened," she said. "That is why we make a plan before emotion makes one for us." I opened an individual account for future income after she approved it, left joint funds untouched, saved the program and Serena's messages, and requested our financial records. Then Grant came home with an overnight bag and a sack containing Emma's favorite muffins. Emma saw the bag before she saw the food. "Are you staying?" she asked. Grant looked at me, hoping I would answer. "I do not know," he said. We arranged 4 chairs in the living room and joined our therapist, Elaine Porter, by video. Elaine made one rule. The children could ask questions, but neither parent could make them responsible for deciding the marriage. Grant apologized for hurting everyone by moving too quickly. I stopped him. The problem was not speed. Elaine asked him to try again without calling the affair a transition. Grant swallowed. "I had a relationship with Serena for 11 months. Your mother did not agree. I told Serena that she had. I planned to announce it at the anniversary because I believed your mother would accept it once it was public." Emma asked, "Why would embarrassing her make her accept it?" "I did not think of it as embarrassing her." "That is not an answer." Grant looked toward Elaine. She remained silent. "I thought your mom cared enough about the family not to end everything in front of everyone," he said. Emma's eyes filled. "So you used us?" "No. You made us stand beside you." Caleb asked whether Grant loved Serena. Grant said yes, then added that he loved all of us. "That makes it worse," Caleb said. "Not better." Elaine asked what they needed immediately. Emma wanted Grant somewhere else for at least a week. Caleb wanted his schedule unchanged and no relatives asking questions. Grant agreed to rent a furnished apartment near the clinic. Because the house was jointly owned and there was no court order, the arrangement was voluntary. We wrote it down anyway. He could collect clothing by agreement, contact the children directly without using them to message me, and return for a family session the following Saturday. In our bedroom, Grant said, "You have made this impossible to repair." I looked at the anniversary dress hanging from the closet. "I do not know whether I want to repair a marriage with someone who believed my no was a public relations obstacle. Serena ended it. That is not the same as you ending it. I would end it if that is what you need. You said yesterday you loved her. Do not offer me a sacrifice you will resent me for accepting." He called me cold. I said I was done arguing about whether facts were feelings. He left without taking the muffins. By Monday morning, fragments of the event were moving through family group chats. Grant holding Serena's hand, me at the microphone, the children beside us. One relative called his announcement brave. Another called Serena his mistress and wanted the screenshots. I sent a single message. "Grant and I are separating temporarily. I did not consent to an open marriage or to the statement made at our anniversary. Please do not contact Emma or Caleb for details, circulate images of them, or ask them to take sides." Then I muted the thread. Correcting a lie did not require feeding a spectacle. Grant called relatives privately. To his mother, he said we had discussed non-monogamy for months and I panicked because my father was present. To Julian, he said Serena misunderstood the seriousness of their relationship. To Rachel, he admitted creating the email but claimed it expressed openness I had shown in counseling. Rachel called 4 days later with the toast she had planned to give. Grant had told her in June that I had agreed to explore an open marriage. He showed her my message saying one person could not meet every need and omitted the next sentence about friends, work, and family. "I should have asked you," she said. "Yes. I thought asking would invade your privacy. So you helped him announce it instead." She cried, But I did not comfort her out of the consequence. I photographed the toast for my records, asked her not to defend Grant to the children, and told her practical help would matter more than another explanation. The following week she drove Caleb to practice when Grant's schedule changed. The clinic's response was quieter than the family rumors predicted. Grant was not fired for adultery. Serena was an independent consultant, and her work was real. The problem was that Grant had approved contract extensions and travel reimbursements without disclosing their relationship. The clinic ordered an independent review, suspended his authority over vendors, and required him to reimburse expenses that could not be separated from personal travel. Serena ended her contract. She sent me the fake account messages, a timeline, and a note. I believed I was joining a consensual relationship. I understand now that belief depended on never hearing you speak. I am sorry. I confirmed receipt and said I would give the records to counsel if needed. I did not reassure her or attack her. We had both been deceived, but that did not make us friends. Marisol filed for legal separation 3 weeks after the event. I was not ready to decide on divorce, but I needed temporary rules for housing, expenses, and parenting. Grant wanted to return home. Emma opposed it. Caleb said he did not care, which Elaine explained often meant the opposite. In mediation, Grant agreed to remain in the apartment for 90 days, pay his share of the mortgage and children's costs, and follow a parenting schedule shaped around the teenager's activities. He could attend school and sports events without using them to force contact with me. We would maintain joint access to major financial records, and neither of us would incur unusual debt. Those terms were not punishment. They were scaffolding around a family that could no longer rely on informal trust. The anniversary cost nearly $19,000. Some of the anniversary money paid for rooms, dinner, music, and photographs we actually received. Some paid for a ceremony that never happened. Grant claimed I had wasted the ceremony fees by withdrawing. Marisol asked whether he wanted a judge to review the fabricated program, fake email, and public announcement. He dropped the claim. Briar House had fulfilled its contract, so there was no miraculous refund. Nina removed our images from the venue's promotional gallery, and the photographer delivered everything through a private link. I kept one photograph of my father beneath the flower arch because Emma asked me to. That part was real, she said. The rest went into the legal archive. Grant and I attended 6 weekly sessions with Elaine. The purpose was not immediate reconciliation. It was to create one truthful account and protect the children from competing stories. Grant resisted the word coercion. He said he had been desperate because Serena threatened to leave unless he acknowledged her. So whose consent could you remove most easily? Elaine asked. Grant looked at me. Laura's, he admitted. Because I thought she would stay. That was the turning point for me. His plan had not been based on confidence that I secretly wanted the same life. It was based on confidence that I was the safest person to betray. He believed 20 years, 2 children, shared property, family expectation, and my habit of solving problems would hold me in place. He had turned my reliability into leverage. I asked whether he would have continued with Serena if I had remained silent during the announcement. Yes, he said. Would you have let the guests believe I agreed? Yes. Would you have used the photographs to reassure Serena later? He closed his eyes. Probably. Each answer removed another excuse. The anniversary had not been an impulsive confession. It was an enforcement mechanism. After the 6th session, I told Grant I wanted a divorce. We both cried. 20 years do not disappear because one conclusion becomes clear. We had raised children, buried grandparents, survived layoffs, painted rooms, driven through the night for emergencies, and learned each other's coffee orders so completely that love often looked like a cup placed on the counter. Those things were real. They were also not permission to stay married after he converted our history into pressure. Grant asked whether I would reconsider if he remained single, continued therapy, and publicly corrected the story. I said he should do those things because they were right, not as a bid for access to me. Then there is nothing I can do, he said. There is a great deal you can do. Become a father our children do not have to investigate. Tell your family one consistent truth. Stop describing my boundary as the cause of your consequence. Participate honestly in the divorce. He said that sounded like a task list from my office. It is. You always praised me for solving practical problems. This is the practical part. The divorce lasted 13 months. The settlement was less dramatic than the anniversary. The house had equity, Grant's clinic share required valuation, and we had retirement accounts, college savings, 2 cars, and ordinary debt. No judge punished him for hurting me. I refinanced the house and kept it until Caleb finished 9th grade. Grant retained his clinic interest and offset part of its value with retirement assets. We protected the college funds and divided the remaining anniversary debt. The result was not a victory scene. It was a workable record of who owned what and who owed what. The harder negotiations concerned the children. Emma turned 18 during the case and chose when to see Grant. Caleb wanted a predictable schedule, alternating weekends and 1 weekday dinner. Elaine reminded Grant that a calendar could assign time but could not manufacture trust. He began arriving early, leaving his phone in the car during dinner, and answering questions without hiding behind the word complicated. Emma did not speak to Grant for 7 weeks. Then she met him in a public park and made him read the paragraph he had wanted me to approve. "If my future partner did this to me, what would you tell me?" she asked. "Leave," he said. Then stop asking why she did. Their relationship resumed in smaller, more honest pieces. At graduation, Grant promised there would be no surprise conversation, no demand to sit beside me, and no forced family photograph. He kept that promise. Emma chose separate pictures and then one with both parents. Grant did not touch my waist. We smiled for our daughter, not for a story about reconciliation. After Caleb finished 9th grade, I sold the house because the refinanced payment limited every other choice. I bought a smaller townhouse 12 minutes away so his school would not change. Our first dinner, there was pizza on the floor. Grant came to collect Caleb the next weekend and waited outside instead of assuming he could enter. At work, I accepted a promotion I had declined twice because it required travel. Grant and I used a parenting app, and Caleb could see both calendars. Nobody had to guess which adult would appear. I dated a widowed architect for 6 months. He asked before posting a photograph of us, and the question mattered more to me than the photograph. We ended kindly because he wanted to move faster than I did. No perfect partner arrived to reward my boundary, and I stopped treating that as a missing ending. Later, Grant introduced a new partner to the children slowly and without calling secrecy privacy. The change was basic, but it was real. On what would have been our 22nd anniversary, Emma and Caleb joined me for dinner at a neighborhood restaurant. We did not name the date until Caleb noticed it on the reservation app. "Is this weird?" he asked. "A little." Emma raised her glass of iced tea. "To no surprise announcements," Caleb added. "To cake that is just cake." We laughed. The joke did not erase what happened. It showed the memory no longer controlled every room it entered. After dinner, Emma gave me an envelope. Inside was the photograph of Dad beneath the arch, properly printed and framed. On the back she had written, "This part was real." I placed it on a shelf in the townhouse, not because I wanted Briar House remembered as a good night, but because refusing a false story did not require deleting every true person standing near it. People ask whether I regret correcting Grant in front of everyone. I do not. He made a factual claim about my consent in front of our children, our families, and Serena. I used the minimum truth needed to stop the ceremony, handed away the microphone, and kept the private evidence private. The harder work came later, protecting the children, preserving records, accepting an ordinary legal settlement, and allowing trust to return only where conduct supported it. The line people remember is, "There will be no vow renewal tonight." The line I remember came before it. I did not agree. Those 4 words separated an affair from an open marriage, pressure from consent, and a shared future from a plan Grant had written alone. I did not have the last word because I held the microphone. I had it because he tried to use a room full of witnesses to make my silence mean yes, and I answered clearly enough that no photograph, printed program, or revised family story could say otherwise.